Welcome to fulfilling this belly sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God morgen. Happy Mani's Day to you. Today we celebrate the Norse god Mani. But Mani represents, Mani meant the moon. He was the moon god according to the Norse legends. But he brings a whole lot more than just that midnight light, right? So let's talk a little bit about how Mani can teach us how we can be better prepared to be happy, to be joyful in this lifetime. Before we get started today, as always, I want to say talk to all of you who have liked, followed, subscribed us on the multitude of platforms that this show is available. I ask, if you haven't done so yet, please like, follow, subscribe. Help us to get this message out even further. Help us distribute out to those who may need it. All right. And most importantly, for those of you who haven't had a chance, check out New Reality TV. Newrealitytv.com is a new streaming channel dedicated to a plethora of perspectives that can help us understand the spiritual influence on our everyday lives, because it's super critical that we understand all the energies that are moving around us, through us, and emitting from us. It is these energies that helps us control how we view the world. For those of you who may need a little bit more ear time, want to bend my ear and let's talk about maybe some struggles you're having emotionally or psychologically, just to get you back to that place of happiness and joy and peace. By all means, check out my website, norsewhispers.com. There you can go to norsewhispers.com/coaching, and let's set up a time. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what may be troubling you right now, and get you an answer that will work and help you to refine happiness and balance. It's so important. As always, this morning we're open on Facebook live chat, where we've got the TikTok chat open. We're available for your questions and certainly your comments. We're always open to that. But today we're talking about Mani. Mani, of course, according to Norse legend, was the moon. He was the brother of Sol, who was the sun. And these two worked in conjunction to bring heat and coolness of a day. So, of course, as Sol comes up and rises to her apex, she brings the heat and the light. As Mani rises to his apex, he's going to bring the cooler temperatures of the evening and certainly kind of that dimming of the light. But nonetheless, we're forming questions, right? We're just really taking the intellect of that lit or that illuminated energy and sending it through our thought process to generate questions. And this is what Mani represents. When we talk about energy, we're talking about energy at two different extremes. We have the illuminated, the light energy, which is intellect, it's knowledge, it's all of the things that we're going to bring into our mind every day, and we're going to be able to see it through this illumination. It's illuminated, right? And then we have dark energy. Dark energy, of course, is the unknown. It's the questions. It's the abyss yet to be filled within our minds. It's super critical that we understand that neither of these are negative or positive. They're simply a state, illuminated or not, or maybe minimized. So we have spectrums, right? So illuminated energy, very bright, very full of intellect, just packed to the gills with intellect about this physical existence or beyond. And then we have this gradient that kind of slides all the way down to the darkness, which is that which we have yet to learn. We've yet to discover. We've yet to illuminate. My great-grandfather always described this as kind of this darkened room that we go into. Well, with a darkened room, you're going to stumble, right? You're going to trip over things. You're going to kick the table. You're going to step on Legos. You're going to do many different things. Why? Because you can't see. You're not able to produce vision of this darkened area. Conversely, if we want to navigate through the area safely, what do? We illuminate. We turn the lights on, right? And so this kind of mindset, thinking about the struggles in our lives, when we have the unknowns, what's the best way to deal with this is to illuminate ourselves. I'm always in a story of my own personal life is when we are looking for employment, right? And I've heard this story many times, but we're looking for employment, or we know that there's a change coming in our job, right? And it's going to be a shakeup in the organization. That change produces a level of fear, not because we're really worried about what we do, but it's unknown. What's going to happen, right? We just don't know yet. Well, how do you illuminate that? Well, you're going to go investigate. Hey, what does it mean that I'm in this new position, or I'm doing this new job, or I'm going out to find jobs, whatever the case may be. The more I can illuminate myself, the more I can learn, the more I can be prepared for this, the more it's illuminated, right? So we're rising and we're able to now navigate through this situation, through this scenario. Same thing with any other type of emotional interaction, right? So we think about a relationship, right? What's the best way to figure out where you are in a relationship? It's to communicate, to learn, to grow, right? We're going to communicate. And that way whether it's a perception of what you want or what you don't want, you're illuminating yourself. You're removing the dark energy and you're illuminating it with intellect. Now, for many of you who have followed the show, you know that as we gain intellect, we're going to stack intellect. I look at intellect as little grains of sand. And we're going to stack this sand in these little towers, I call them. And I call them the little towers of knowledge. And what it means is that I've gained a bunch of intellect about a particular thing, and I've kind of stacked it up nicely. And so, but what's the matter with this right now is that I have just this one tower of intellect, okay? Or knowledge, right? And within my brain, I've taken grains of sand and I've built hundreds of thousands of these little towers of knowledge. And then we're going to apply experiences. We're going to kind of process through that which we can see, taste, touch, hear, smell. And we're going to kind of process those through our brain, through our heart, right, into our memories. And these experiences then begin to interrelate these knowledge stacks together, I'm always reminded of my sons who are a little bit more knowledgeable in auto mechanics than I am. Well, in much the same way, I know my truck pretty well, but yet there's this next level. My son does the oil, he does all the things for me, and I very much appreciate that if you're watching. But what we see is we have this additional experiences that he's done, i.e. change oils in all kinds of trucks and cars and whatnot. So I do flame bearer, I do see your comments. Thank you. Okay, so they're coming up in both, so thank you. But I see his pieces, he has different experiences that allow him to integrate other facts. If he were to do my brakes as an example, he could be very knowledgeable in brakes, but not very knowledgeable in something else, in exhaust, say. And it's as he gets more experiences, he's going to begin to interrelate all of these different things related to auto repair, okay? So that's what experience does, is it begins to tie these little knowledge columns together. All right. So we so thank you, Flame Bearer. And I apologize, I'm still getting used to chat. So bear with me. There is so much that we're going to gain intellectually, book smarts we call them, and that's when we're going to study and we're going to learn a very concentrated intellect form. So intellect's the little pieces that's going to build the knowledge towers, right? And then experience is going to connect these towers together, okay? And they're going to connect them all, which gives us this next level of, we'll call it the next level of knowledge, and this is wisdom. So experience plus knowledge equals wisdom. Notice there are some people in this world who are super intellect based. They've learned a lot from books, from movies, from other people, all of these pieces, but yet they don't seem to really have an experience, right? So they're not super street smart. They're simply book smart, right? So this is really where wisdom comes into play. Now, as we gain wisdom, as we gain all these knowledge stacks and pieces, we're putting them all together, linking them with experience. We always have to keep in mind that we, all of us, have the power to direct our perspective to where we want to go. We are not required, if someone were to, say, interact with us and give us this bad news, right? We're not required to subscribe to anything and become sad or depressed or whatever. There's no requirement, all right? You and you alone are what controls this. Now, we've spoke about many times before where we talk about how our world, our reality, is processed. We see it and taste it, smell it. All of those are connected. So, but we see it, and then we're going to process it through our mood. Our mood is a previous experience that's now set our emotional filter. So that emotional filter sits behind all of the sensory input, and it's going to kind of give us that first glimpse. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to alter the reality that you've just seen. So if we saw something, that emotional filter is going to pick out of the scene that we witnessed one thing or another. You're not going to see it all, or you're not going to process it all, I should say, but you're going to process that which the brain dictates you should. Let me further explain. When you see a picture, i.e., that snapshot in your brain of the experiences that you're having in reality, when that's processed, you can see it one of two ways. You can look at that scene and point out all the negatives, all the unwanted stuff, all the bad stuff, right? Or you can see the beauty within it, the love, the harmony, the joy, just the blessing of of what's in that frame, right? You can make this decision. You can decide whether you're going to look at it from a beauty perspective or you're going to look at it from a negative perspective. That choice is up to you. Now, as we look at scenes and we process it with the perspective that we're going to look at it one way or another, whether it be joyfully or not, things are now processed through our filter down into our heart. Our heart then releases chemicals into our body, and those chemicals then come up through the bloodstream, and your brain now does this little comparison thing. So this little mapping of chemical composition comes up to the brain, and the brain sees it and identifies it, and then it's going to look over in its little recipe book, which is you've built throughout your lifetime. You've built this little recipe book. It's going to compare this recipe book and go, that's interesting. Okay, so based on what I just see in this chemical composition that's now arrived in my brain that I'm processing, I feel this way. This is how I feel. This then sets that emotional filter, or that mood filter, for the next present. Now, presents are a micro sliver of time. Your whole consciousness, everything about you, exists in a millisecond, a nanosecond of time. One sliver is that you have had, and the ones you haven't. All right, so you've got this micro sliver of time that you're processing all of this stuff. Okay, this filter is now adjustable, can be adjusted per experience, per micro sliver of time. So you'll find your emotions may do this number throughout the day because different experiences are being processed. And that's essentially how we're going to be kind of moody sometimes, right? We see in women, pregnant women, and younger men, maybe even upper boys, right? Older boys, the age group. We find this emotional kind of rough waters, we'll say, right? And these rough waters are going to teach us our recipe book. That's what we're learning as we go through this emotion of, or this ocean of emotion, right? So we're going to learn, and we're going to make note of what this chemical composition means, right, to us. Now, having said all that, many times what's going to happen and this happens in life, is that we're going to, our brain / the brain's communication to the heart is going to get in a rush. We don't really have time, or there's a perception that we don't have time to process it and fully feel it and embrace it. So we kind of take this shortcut, all right? And when we take this shortcut, it creates a delta between where this thing comes out and where it should have come out. And there's this chemical composition difference between the two. And the brain, the processing part, the emotional energy processing part, recognizes the difference. And what it's going to do with the difference, measured difference, is it's going to kind of store it at the bottom of this tube of truth, I'll call it. And it's going to store it at the bottom so that now when we visualize, we somehow intake a large emotional trauma, right? Whether real or imagined, irrelevant, brain doesn't know the difference. When this energy is being processed through this bandwidth, we only have a certain amount of bandwidth, right? But now we've taken up the bottom part of it. So now we have less bandwidth to process this emotional energy through. Now, up at the top of this tube, as we've mentioned, we have headspace. We have a little bit of space that we're going to use for cognitive abilities. And we're going to use that cognitive space to break down the energy that's being processed into manageable chunks. So that's what this headspace is going to do, is it's going to kind of help us to bring this down to where we're only dealing with small parts at a time. Now, obviously, that can't always happen, and we're going to receive this brunt force trauma, right, through one of the sensory inputs, and it's going to overrun that tube. It's just going, there's just too much stuff to go through this tube. When this happens, and we have this emotional overrun, the rest of the brain doesn't really know what to do with emotional energy. Kind of panics. And this is where we see physiological symptoms. Sweaty palms, tremors, shakes, anxiety attacks, panic attacks. Or, on the other hand, depression, extreme sadness, and the inability to kind of reorientate. Now, in some cases, we also see, based on psychological studies, where we have blackouts, where the brain just says, nope, don't even worry about that other stuff. I'm not going to deal with it. Too bad. And so we have what we call blackouts. Now, this does not mean that that information, that intellect, that energy moving through the brain is lost. Most often than not, what it's going to happen is it's going to kind of build up, and while you're blacking out, it's processing. This is why things like hypnotherapy and some of these other therapies, where we're going past the conscious mind, we're going back into further back into a subconscious mind to be able to withdraw those memories, because those memories are there. You still experienced the event, you just didn't process it, and that's okay. Your brain did what it did for reasons it had, okay? And it's important that we understand that that's okay, right? We're normal, right? We're not anything, we're not foolish or silly or childish. We're none of those things. Our brain simply deals with what it can deal with, and that's it. So if we exceed the limit, it's okay. Just take a minute, recenter, refocus, start focusing on more on this than you do on this. Focus more on the heart, get that energy down through what my grandfathers refer to our heart processing as a well. Okay, and down at the bottom of this well is rocks. And so we're trying to get this energy that we've just taken into sensory input all the way through the well to a processing point underneath the rocks. And when that energy can get through those, what the rocks represent is, of course, our intrinsic values, those virtues that make us who we are. Super important as we go all the way down. But if we don't go all the way down, we hit the surface, because remember, this is a well, which is a wonderful visualization of this. This is a well, and in that well, it's half full of water, right? And so that water can get agitated, and when it gets agitated, it gets murky, and it's hard to see through. It's hard to get the energy all the way through to the bottom. So a lot of our thought process just bails, bounces off the surface, goes out the side, and this then becomes the delta between our chemical or our biochemistry that we're creating versus what it should be, which is way down here at the bottom, right? And this happens frequently. Our brain And if we're not, if we're unable to see through the water, and this of course is our mind processing, right? If we're just 50 billion things going on in our brain and we're trying to think about so many things at the same time, and we're not taking time to just kind of slow things down, take a deep breath, kind of, how do we feel? And not running on high energy, just kind of slowing it down a little bit, letting our brain fully process our emotional interactions, right? Then we're going to see this kind of reduction in stress. Why? Because we don't have the delta. We're able to apply our intrinsic values, what we find important about life, about feeling, about just being, right? So as we're able to bring that energy all the way to the bottom of this well and through the processing point underneath it, now we're getting a full experience of whatever it is. We're also getting a much clearer picture within our mind. So it's super important that we take time. This is why you will hear just everyone who has any level of kind of spiritual recognition is they're going to say we need time to reflect intrinsically, meditate, right? You're going to hear that word quite a bit. And why? Because this is the process where we can now clear the brain. We're going to clear out all that just mad processing, and we're just going to let it flow, and we're going to get all the way down into our intrinsic values, and we're going to make life's decisions and life experience interpretations now based on this emotional state. And this makes it more authentically who we are. It also sets us up to make more decisions moving forward in our lives based on our authentic self. Our authentic self being the critical core of who we are, what we are, what values we have of being in a society, of being in a community, of being in this wonderful existence that we have. So it's super exciting when you just take some time to process this all the way through. So today, as we embrace the Mani's Day, and we really wrap our minds around processing and understanding Mani and all the magic that Mani brings, we're understanding that there is darkness. It's not negative, it's simply unilluminated. And you have the opportunity to illuminate it any way you choose. You're in charge. You have the authority up here. So you're welcome to use it anytime you want, right? No one else. If someone else is driving, you've surrendered control and you need to get the steering wheel back. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be you, to service the self, to think about, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? Is it really valuable to me to continue feeling this way? What value am I receiving? If I'm not receiving value, dump and go. Move on to happiness. Find joy. Find harmony with other life forms. They're out there. You have a choice as to how you're going to interpret the world that you experience. You can choose to be joyful or not. That choice is yours. And you have the authority to make that up here. All right? So, today, Mani's Day, hopefully you will choose to find joy, to find peace, to find happiness, to find harmony. It's out here in droves. I can tell you, quite honestly, it is abundant in the world. So, remember, you can change your perspective. All right? All right, tomorrow, I want to invite you to join us once again, as tomorrow we will talk about the courage of tear, the courage to be the self, the courage to look deeper inside you and allow that energy to go all the way to the bottom of that well, right? And we'll talk about how you can do that. In the meantime, my friends, have a wonderful Money's Day. Flame Bearer, I will more than happily discuss this, and we will follow up with your question about blood quantum. We'll talk about it. All right. For the rest of you, my friends, have a wonderful Money's Day. We will see you again tomorrow for Tears Day. Love and light.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.